Thank you for coming tonight. This is sponsored by the Friends of the Wellesley Free Library. Sana Desai Gopal is a journalist specializing in science and medicine, food and travel. She was born and raised in India and now lives in Newton, Mass. With her husband and 2 children. Her work has been published in the Boston Globe, The Atlantic, Modern Farmer, and the Times of India, among others. She holds master's degrees in environmental science from India, tropical agricultural and environmental science from England, and science and medical journalism from the United States. Sana herself is from a small village in India, Yadahalli, doomed to submerge in the backwaters of one of India's biggest dams, the Upper Krishna Project. Her family has lived in Yadahalli for 18 generations, and she grew up on the stories of its residents and a fair dose of dam politics. And we're very lucky to have her come speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Perfect pronunciation there. Yeah. You can hear me without an echo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, just for the slideshow.
Is that okay?
Yeah, is that better? I think it's better. Is it better? Okay. So I want to, the 86 Village was released in April 2022. And I want to talk a little bit about how this book came to be. So I'm a reporter. I'm not a fiction writer. But I come from this village in India which is going to be drowned in the backwaters of one of India's biggest dam projects. It's one of 176 villages. And the project started in 1956, but it was just mired in controversy and corruption, and it hasn't been completed even to this date. So about 7 or 8 years ago, I thought that I could do an expose, like a series of articles. The Globe said they would publish them. But as I was researching, I realized that I could not be an unbiased reporter. There'd be a lot of bias. And therefore, what I did is I took all the information I had, which is nonfiction, and used it as a backdrop to tell a story. So the 86 Village is this. This is the 86 Village. But the characters and the story are all fictitious. And I'm going to walk you through this slideshow. And if you read the book and you want to picture what it looks like, just close your eyes and think about these images. So this is the main gate of my family home, which is about 300 years old. This picture, interestingly, was taken during COVID when the gate was closed and no one was allowed to enter. And that is perhaps the first time in my life I saw that, because the gate is always open and the entire village passes through the gate, and it's just open. This is another picture of parts of the house. The first few slides are going to be pictures of this house that's going to drown very soon. I call this a summer tower. The way it's constructed, the ventilation makes it cooler than the other parts of the house in the summer when temperatures hit sometimes like 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's no coolers or ACs. So this is traditionally how people lived, and just, the architecture just lent itself to keeping houses cool during the summer and warm during the winter. This is a courtyard. Every big house in this area is designed like this. There's several green spaces in the house that keep them cool. And yeah, this is another picture. It's my favorite part of the house. It's the formal seating area where guests who are not part of the family, and sometimes that you may not like, are received here. I put this picture in of a kerosene lantern because we still have power outages and often use lanterns. And the other part of this is, since this village and that whole area is going to submerge in a dam, the government stopped investing in the infrastructure. So there's huge power outages, the roads are not kept up, so it's just going downhill. It's a Shiva temple. I don't know if you know, Shiva is one of the Hindu deities. And this temple is right outside our family home. And, the villagers often come there to pray. There's a snake shrine. So historically, we have always worshipped things that we fear. And the snake is something that people here fear. So this is a shrine on my family property, and people will come here and give offerings and pray. And yeah, I just thought it might be interesting. A bullock cart race. They haven't yet been painted, but when they're painted and race down the village roads, they're glorious. They look really beautiful. It's a village festival. I don't know what exactly it was, but I just took a picture. The women are dressed in like their best, and it's a good congregation of people. And this is happening in a village that will drown. So people are still celebrating. They're not sitting back in their houses and weeping about things. Okay, so on the left is my husband, and on the right is a boy from the village who also happens to be the friend of my two kids, who are 17 and 15 and are right now at home doing homework, I think. So they had a little chess tournament going, and I think actually my husband may have lost. This is my daughter. There's a water buffalo, and she's just petting one of them. So I've taken my kids to India at least once a year, sometimes twice or thrice, since they were 5 months old. So they have really strong ties, and they can identify with both American and Indian culture and navigate both with a great deal of ease without being hugely confused. So I call this the traveling sari saleswoman party. It's like a Tupperware party, except this is a traveling sari saleswoman who shows up on some nice afternoon, and those are all the saris she's about to sell. And then you can see my mother is there, and my aunt who's sitting here is here. So they gather around, and they have a good time. They buy the saris. They discuss the good points in every sari, and what it takes a few hours to get one. These are marigold fields. Marigold is a very, very significant flower. It is used in decorating houses, especially during auspicious occasions when you have some ritual or Hindu ritual. The marigold is a very important flower. Sunflower fields. And if you look at them, they do turn their heads towards the sun.
Is it for
Huh?
sunflower oil?
Yeah, sunflower oil for cooking. And I put this picture of my childhood in there. I am, I don't know how this happened, but anyway, I am there. 1, 2, on top. That from the right, second person from the right. And these are all my cousins. And, growing up, summers were absolutely magical. And we just spent all day together. And it was this gang of friends that I had. And of course, everyone is grown up, and everyone has their own family, and they're doing tremendously, beautifully well. But still, those childhood memories, you never forget them. And I put this in because my children have these friends now. So my son is on the extreme right. It's the tall boy on the right. And my daughter is on the extreme left. And these are the kids they've been hanging out with since they were babies. And this is the dam. This is what the dam looks like. That's going to flood, every village that has this kind of history and significance. This is a drone picture of Yadahalli, which is my village. And this is how it looks for a good part of the year until the monsoon set in. And once the monsoon set in, because of the dam, the water is stored at such a high level that in the backwaters that, these villages start flooding. Luckily, ours is not flooded completely, but the water is so close that we have to move very soon, like probably later this year. So you see the water there? It's coming closer and closer. And that's the summer tower, and the water is right behind it. Those are ostensibly fields that were farmed and with different crops, including peanuts and sunflowers. And this is when it's right at our backyard. So you can sit in the backyard of our house and see this. It's actually pretty stunning, except that inside there are hundreds and hundreds of houses and all that have flooded and disappeared. This is a picture of my family graveyard where 18 generations have been buried, and at every grave there is a shrine or some carving. It's halfway submerged, but by the end of monsoon, the water will have reached the top. And honestly, I think graveyards like this are historically very important, but the government has not made any attempt to save them in any way. I mean, if you think about what Egypt did with all its temples and all that, it was flooding in Aswan Dam. They moved everything, but India hasn't managed to do that at all. Water buffalo. They're the happiest of anyone. They go for a walk in the mornings through the water, find green pastures, eat, and then they come back at night. And the water buffalo milk is very similar to what is used in making mozzarella cheese. So it's really thick and and creamy and quite popular. But yeah, these guys are very, very happy. I learned to swim in this well. It's a stone well, and it was fed by natural springs. And now it just has muddy water from the floods. You can't swim in it. We used to even use that water. It was potable water, and you could drink it, but not anymore. I loved this picture. It was this man standing by the water, looking to see, how quickly it was rising. He was just assessing how, because that's what we do now. We watch how quickly the water is rising, and then decide how to react to it or respond to it. Just pictures of the village that, it's been abandoned, and this is what's happened. Those are houses that were abandoned. There's a street right outside my parents' house, and growing up, it was absolutely bustling with activity. There were, women would finish their morning housework chores and hang around outside. The kids were running up and down. But now it's completely dead because most of the village has left. It's one of the few houses in the village where people are still living. They will move, but I have no idea why they continue to live there. But we do too, so it's not something I can pass judgment on. But it's very well maintained, and it's one of the few houses in the village that that looks like this. All right, so that is one picture I had to put in. It's a child's pink tricycle under a banyan tree right outside our front gate. And so amid all this devastation and the village drowning and people leaving, there are these children who ride their tricycles around, and they are the future, right? They're the future of this place. A road that is completely ruined, and I used to walk along this road when I was a little child, and we would go picnic on the other side. You can see some farmland, but now it's really rocky and it's quite dangerous to even walk on it. Aerial shot of the area. That's how the backwaters look. You can see like the taller trees coming out, but as the dam gets taller and taller, all of this will be totally flooded. So I have an interesting story about this. Last August, I was doing a piece for the Globe on, just the area and how people, were surviving. So I ended up going to a village. It wasn't a village, actually. It was a hamlet of 300 people who did not own any land, but they made their living fishing, keeping, livestock. And this is the only access road to this village that's called Chaudhapur. And you can see the backwaters are pretty high. In another 2 feet, this road will submerge. And when it floods, there's no other way to get to the village. So what these guys do is they watch how fast it's rising, and when they know that the road is going to flood, they will go to higher ground and build like makeshift shacks and live in them for 3 or 4 months, waiting for the monsoons to go and the water to come down to a level where they can do this. So those 3 or 4 kids behind, they were walking home from school, which is about 3 miles away. And there's no bus service. These are the forgotten villages. That's what I call them. They're the forgotten villages. I talked to this grandmother and granddaughter. She didn't know how old she was, but she did remember that her family was compensated about 40 years ago, and they were paid $1,000 as compensation, which is not enough, but that is not the point. They were not taught how to use that money or to invest it. So it just got blown away, and that is something that's very, very typical of this whole project, and many projects like this, actually. Village elder who yelled at me because he thought I was representing the government. And so he yelled, and then I said, no, I'm from here, I grew up here, and, I am one of you. And then he kept quiet, and he was really, really repentant, but yeah, I got yelled at. I call this woman in red. So the entire hamlet gathered when I visited with an uncle of mine. And everyone was talking to me about, different problems, especially the men had way too many problems. And this woman comes out, and she just blasts them. She pointed out that almost every man in that village is an alcoholic because they're day laborers, and they go and work 3 days a week, and whatever they make, they come and blow it on alcohol, so the women are left to fend for themselves. And the women work, they take care of their families, and, they do it beautifully well. But it's, this is not a problem just in India anyway. It happens all over the world, where you have these communities that haven't been educated or are not literate, and, this is what happens. So anyway, she was fiery, and I quite liked her. A bunch of kids who wanted to pose. And I took this picture because there is that child with a yellow T-shirt. He's 12, and his name is Shalil, and he has juvenile diabetes. And his mother cannot afford to get him his insulin shots every month, which costs like maybe $3. So the women in the village get together and make sure he gets it. So the bottom line is, there's not many communities like this in the area that the dam is going to flood, but there's enough that it needs to be noticed and and dealt with. This is a tribe, they're called the Lambanis, and they've lived here also for hundreds of years, and they will lose everything, as well to the dam. And they don't dress like this every day, but when I visited and I said, I'm a reporter and I'm doing a story on you, they ran inside and wore all this stuff and came out and wanted to be photographed. So I did exactly that. And that's the 86 village. So this is the background of the 86 village. When you read the book, you will see I have portrayed all these different aspects of it in the book. So the book is very scientifically sound. It's not, I'm just not like talking out of my hat. But then you have this other story that's going on. So yes, there is also beauty in destruction. And this is my parents' backyard. So with people moving away And with the water rising, it's heyday for all the wild animals. And these are flamingos, and I've seen hundreds of them in our backyard at one time. So my dad is a wildlife photographer, and he always like chronicles these things. There's a peacock, and you can see many of these. A monkey. Oh, these are vicious. They come into the village and they steal everything. And a leopard. So that is my presentation. That's my email, my website, Facebook. I have little notes and things there that you can take with all my information in case you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram. I'm not really that active, but I try to be active. But the best way to really reach me is my email. And I'm open to everything, criticism, whatever you have. And I wanted to point out these three big articles that I did about Yadahali and this project. And two are in the Boston Globe and one is in the Modern Farmer. I've done smaller pieces, but these are the big ones. And I think When the Krishna Rises probably got the most reaction of any of the other pieces I did. So you can buy the 86th Village on Amazon, Walmart, local stores, Barnes and Noble, and you can actually buy it in almost any part of the world. It just takes longer. If you're in Australia, it'll take a couple of weeks to ship. So that's my presentation. And shall I read from the book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Question.
Two questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned it gets 110 in the summer.
Yeah.
What's the coldest it ever gets? That's one question.
Hmm?
The other question is unrelated, but have your efforts reached the ears of people who can affect change in this situation or do anything, either through compensation or some form of consideration for the people losing the property?
Okay, so the first question, I would say it drops down maybe, I don't know what 10 degrees Celsius is. What would that be? 10?
Times 2 plus 30.
So 10 degrees Celsius is the
20 and
coldest.
30 would be in the 50s.
Yeah, that would be the coldest. It may go to the 40s, but, yeah, for higher 40s and 50s.
Good sleeping weather, but have your efforts here affected any potential for change in what's happening to your village, either through compensation or some form of consideration?
No, because I haven't done anything except write a book and used, right, but there have been a lot of activists in that area, very seasoned activists. One was my great-great-uncle who spearheaded, the whole the compensation for the dam. And because of him, the Upper Krishna project actually became one of the first projects in India where people were compensated market value for whatever they owned. So I am just hijacking what he did.
That's the Yadahali Dam.
Yeah,
So you can
Yeah.
Google that and get all sorts of
yeah, you can.
Is it the Yadahali Dam?
No, it's the Upper Krishna project. It's called. Let me show you. So you see when it says when the Krishna rises, okay, that's the river. Krishna is the river, and the project is Upper Krishna project, and quite a bit of this information is kind of written into the book I wrote. But I don't think I did any. Sure, I did a book of fiction, and people are now able to read it and understand it better because I gave facts to them in a way that they can understand. But this whole fight against the government has been going on for 15, 20 years, and the Indian government actually was totally shocked. They weren't prepared for this. They weren't prepared that this area would have these extremely erudite human activists. And they were shocked because they didn't know what to do. They were stuck.
They thought they would just plow through with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, and there were all kinds of strikes and nothing violent, but enough that they had to take notice because they knew that if they didn't, this could get out of hand. So I'm very proud of one of my great uncles who actually started this, and it's because of him that people are actually not dirt poor. And they have got the money. So the project you see here, yes, there's a lot of things that should not have happened or are happening, but by and large, if you compare it to anything, even like the Aswan Dam or the Three Gorges, people have had their rights. And I often get this question where people want to donate money to help these people. These guys are very, very proud. They're not going to take money from anyone except their government. Yeah, it is, but it's a hard thing to do, and in that sense, I can empathize with the government, because if someone owns land, you can give them money for that land, and they can go and try and buy land somewhere else. But the slideshow I showed I showed you the Chadapur, the village, where people don't own land. Their income is as day laborers, so doing other things. So how do you rehabilitate those people? How do you rehabilitate, for example, the village blacksmith? You have to set up a village where his services are needed, and that's really hard, right? It's hard everywhere. Or the village grocer, you have to give him a village where he can sell his groceries. You want me to read?
Yes.
Okay, so I've just picked like a couple of small things. All right, so I don't know if you're aware. So the story is about a little girl who goes and shows up in this village. The 86 village is called Nilgi, and this little girl shows up over there. She is, the village assumes that she's an orphan, and the 86 village is the only village that hasn't drowned in the dam, and that's where she shows up. And this is the evening when she shows up, and the village decides to take her in and take her to the house of the landlords. From the Vada, so Vada is the mansion of the landlords. From the Vada, Samar walked back to the temple, his steps leading him there without conscious intention or purpose. The place was deserted, cold and dark, and he knew his wife was waiting at home with their dinner, but Samar wanted to be alone. The simple act of Reshma hiding behind his knees had roused unfamiliar emotions in Samar, unsettling him. He wondered if Reshma had unwittingly declared her trust in him with that gesture, or was it that Basu's presence had sent her scurrying to hide behind the only pair of knees she could find? The image of Basu caused Samar to smile ruefully. His bald head, his huge paunch, his short, stubby fingers made Basu seem childlike, innocent even. But his loud laugh, his booming voice, abrupt, no-nonsense attitude could intimidate easily. Samar understood a little girl's apprehension on meeting Basu for the first time, but he could not understand his own emotions towards a beggar he had met a few hours ago. Sitting under the trees outside the temple, Samar let the tranquility of the place soothe him. He was an atheist and did not believe that Lord Hanuman, the Hindu monkey deity residing inside the temple, was responsible for calming short nerves. But even he could not deny there was something mystical, powerful, even peaceful about the place. During the day, there was a stillness about the temple, despite the small sounds. The aerial roots of the banyan trees turned and twisted like the gnarled hands of an old woman, creeping towards the soil, forming a thick trellis around the main trunks. Birds flitted in and out of the thick green canopy. Squirrels scampered up and down the giant tree trunks. and monkeys swung on the branches, munching on sweet red fruit. Sometimes a cobra or a rat snake slithered through the afternoon shadows, disappearing in the surrounding fields. In the morning, the sound of the pujari's chants drowned all sound. In the evening, the chatter of the gathered crowd and the call of roosting birds made the world outside disappear, as if the temple was the center of the universe, grabbing all its energy and taking it for its own. Behind the temple, the land sloped sharply into the Krishna River, its waters calm in the summer and winter, turbulent and muddy in the monsoon. The villagers believed the temple stood like a gatekeeper, keeping the outside world outside. They knew that Lord Hanuman protected them from the monsoon floods that ravaged the surrounding countryside year after year, made worse by the incomplete Arjuna Dam downstream. No one had the nerve to point out that Nilgi escaped flooding because it was on higher ground. Nilgi was one of 86 villages that would submerge when the dam was completed, and Samar had come to Nilgi 4 years ago with his wife, Usha, as a displacement and rehabilitation officer to help people move and resettle. Okay, that is one. And then I have another one. Do you want to still hear me? Okay. By now, stormy monsoon waters should have turned the Krishna brown and muddy. By now, fields and forests should have become a lush, wet green. By now, the birds on the useless electric wires should have been soaked and shimmering. By now, the monsoon damp should have seeped into everything. By now. Instead, Nilgi was a bristling brown patch of earth on which the sun shone triumphantly. There was not a grey cloud. The defeated soil cracked, fell apart without inhibition. The crops in the fields wilted. The cattle grew thin, and the little milk they produced tasted of the bitter Parthenium weeds they were grazing on. The grass was brown, dead, long gone. Shrinking puddles dotted the bed of the Krishna, islands of water that birds swooped down to drink from. The scum of bird life congregated in Nilgi. Crows gathered around rotting piles of garbage. Vultures circled the clear blue sky, waiting for the scorching heat to suck the life out of yet another animal, and when it happened, swooped down and feasted. The happy, twittering sparrows were gone. The water in the Vada's well was gone. Not even a puddle remained. The sandy soil at the bottom, never directly exposed to the sunlight, now flirted with the Surya, the sun god, not realizing it was a self-destructive, dangerous liaison. People came to the well every day to gaze anxiously at the exposed bottom. Perhaps the village superstition was true, that the drying of the well signaled doom. No one had ever elaborated on the nature of the doom, but few people doubted it. People now understood the basis of the superstition. Only a severe drought could drain the well. The drought became the only subject of conversation, the theme of nightmares in Nilgi. People measured the growing cracks in the ground with their eyes. Farmers added up their losses from failed crops. People accepted the drought, and it thrived. It reveled in the awe and fear it inspired. Clear blue skies, somber thoughts, dead fields, and a dried river marked its success. It stayed because it was unwelcome. Solar-powered fans whirred in the Vada, doing nothing except blowing the hot air around, yet the sound was comforting. The heat had numbed the senses, and the body felt cooler just listening to the blades going round and round. Anxiety made the heat claustrophobic. Okay. I have more, but I think you should get the book and read it from there. Melanie, what time are we at? Yeah, so we'll do whatever. Do you have, oh, hi. Questions, or if you want me to read some more, I can read it. Okay, I'll do one more short paragraph because it's an interesting one. It's about marriage, so it should be interesting. All right, so this is going to be the last paragraph I'm going to do. So Santosh's biggest problem was that he was married to a tree. He had been married a few months and had several more months before he could divorce the tree and find another wife. He had divorced his first wife. His second wife had divorced him, and the astrologer insisted his third marriage should be to the sacred peepal tree, because 3 is an unlucky number. After divorcing the tree, he could move on to a successful fourth marriage. His first marriage was arranged, like all respectable marriages. After the astrologer studied the horoscopes of Santosh, who was not yet a member of the state's legislative assembly. So I want to just interrupt here, and tell you that Santosh is the corrupt politician who you'll meet, through the entire book. And his wife, and announced they matched. The astrologer would have said the same thing, even if the horoscopes had not matched, because the bride was Santosh's first cousin, and their marriage had been intended since they were children. Santosh was reconciled to the match because it was beneficial. The bride's father was well respected and fairly well off. The astrologer, to establish his authority, said the marriage must happen at once, as the couple's stars would never be as perfectly aligned as now. The ceremony took place one blistering summer morning during the auspicious wedding season, under the shade of a red and white shamiana, decorated with marigold flowers and mango leaves. Santosh was 25 and his bride 19, and the dowry was excessive. A scooter for the bridegroom, a black and white television, several steel pots and pans, and a quilt for the marital bed the bride herself had sewn. The bride's parents were grateful to Santosh for marrying their daughter, a plain and mild girl with few prospects. I'm done.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us.
Yeah.
Did we have any further questions or anything? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I have some information there, if on that table, if you want it, and I would really appreciate if you put your emails there so I can keep you in my newsletter.